All right, guys. Thank you so much for being able to make it. It's a real privilege to be able to present Jawwad Farid. He's from Pakistan. Is traveling to the U.S. I heard he was presenting at Columbia. I thought it would be a great opportunity for us. He made a contribution to the Darden community. Give you a quite short background on Jawwad. Actually, by profession, an author. Columbia grad, as I mentioned, has, without taking the thunder away from his speech, taking 2 businesses down into the ground, be able to talk more about it, a lot of lessons learned. Been a phenomenal mentor, and hope you guys enjoy.
Camera, look at the camera. So, thank you very much for coming out in such large numbers. We were expecting, or at least I was expecting, 15 people, but apparently I was unprepared. So, as an answer, my name is Jawwad Farid, and I am a failure. And it's something that I've become reasonably good at in practice. So my hope is that by the time I'm done with this session, and you heard my story, all of you would be able to join me going out. And my name is Jawwad Farid, and I'm a failure. So let's start. Before I joined Failures Anonymous, I wanted to be a winner. And if I look back in the past, about 18 years old, I have a very strong interest in track and field. So you can't tell now by my shape inside that I could run. But once upon a time, I ran the 800. I had run the 800 and the mile. And for an 18-year-old in Pakistan, if you could break the mile in under 5 minutes, that was respectable. And like most winners, I wanted my own world record. I wanted to be very see Mr. Bolt with his 100 meters track and field record. I wanted a medal, preferably at the Olympics, preferably more than one. And the unfortunate part was that, like most people who are wishing and aiming high, I didn't realize, didn't understand, I didn't learn the lesson that before I could win, I had to fail. So if you see the picture in front of you, you see 2 people. This is Zolabad. How many of you have heard the name Zolabad? And that's Marideka Slaney. The event is the 1984 Olympics in LA. It's the final lap of the 3,000 meters. Both Zola and Decker are the top seeded favorites. The race has been billed as the clash of the Titans. And in the final stretch, Zola sort of cuts in front of Decker. Decker trips and falls. Zola gets distracted, and both of them lose. And the medal goes to Romania. And my rationale for giving up, quitting, running, was I didn't want to be here or here. So track and field, and I'm sure there are quite a few of you who've done this, the training program, the effort that goes into winning a race is very intense. You end up running between 2 to 4 hours. You end up training between 2 to 4 hours every day. And that sort of adds up to. So my problem was that if I wasn't good enough, and a number of people said so to my face, that you are good enough. If I didn't make it to the Olympics, then it would not be really worth my while. So I gave up on my dream because I was primarily afraid of being overwhelmed by failure. Gave up the chance to live on the edge, joined the herd, later on joined my appropriate and respectable place at the top of the did all of this, effectively gave up my shot at Nirvana because I did not want to be where Decker and Bud were. Didn't want to walk that road. Right? So that's my very first, very personal, very initial story of my personal failure. And today, when we thought about doing the session, I thought I'll start off with story number 2, which is a business that I started while I was in school, just like you are. There were a number of reasons for doing this. So the idea was very simple. The idea was online corporate finance courses. So e-education, focusing only on corporate finance, and 3 separate markets. The first group were MBA students. So you're first years, right? You remember your first term? The first quarter? Remember your first spreadsheet? Your first valuation exercise? Remember your first midterm and your first final? We're trying to figure out where the VAT comes from and where beta goes. So the idea was, some of us get that, but there is about 30-35% of the student community in all schools that suffers at the hand of corporate finance. And the idea was, let's serve this. If you compare the entire market, that's a huge number. That was one market. The other market was analyst and associate training programs at investment banks. And the third market was, I'm an actuary by profession. I'm what you call a certified professional. Most certified professionals have a continuing professional education requirement. So the idea was, they need to be serviced, and in one go, one product you could possibly attract in other markets. So business school, or starting a business at business school, made a lot of sense. Made a lot of sense because the opportunity cost was taken care of. So you'd already borrowed an enormous amount of money to cover your tuition. So your rent was paid for. Nobody was going to ask you what are you going to do with your life because you're going to school. You had some extra spare time. And living cost was decent. Pizza costs $1, a glass of water, bottle of water or a can of Coke costs $1, at least in 2010. I don't know. What's the going rate now for a slice of pizza here? On the campus? Free. Right. So if you wanted to start a business while you were a student, a number of factors that would normally hold you back were no longer there. And then beyond that, it was also very unreal because in 1999, if you were an MBA student with a business plan in New York or Southern California or California for that matter, it was very simple for you to get funding. You had to put on a decent show, which most of us could, and you get an investor. So we did that. So that's the new business school building in 2000 at Columbia Business School. And we basically took over this room on the corner. So that was the global corporate headquarters of Amazon LLC for the first year and a half before the school threw us out. From Columbia in New York, we moved to Southern California, which is where our incubator was located. And if New York or Columbia Business School or starting a business in school was unreal, California was, remember, 2000, turn of the century, California was like being high on crack all the time. You would not hear no from anybody. Everybody would say, this is a great idea, let's move forward, let's think, let's start. When you went and presented to investors, you would have a tough time. But general community, MBA from Columbia, startup plan, business plan, funded, incubated, prototype, out in the street, talking to beta customers, great conversation to have. All right, so the term that I came up with to describe this feeling was that I carried my own personalized reality distortion field around myself. There was a lot going around in my life at that point in time, but I chose to ignore it, mainly because I was driven by this desire to win. And it didn't help that two guys in a room with a very basic, simplified technology front end with 2 or 3 courses written down were able to go in front of the 3rd largest bank on this planet, pitch to that bank in Tokyo, and come back with at least the promise of a further conversation. So you had events that could bring you up, you had events that would put you down, but the biggest pitch that happened for us was the Tokyo conversation.